If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year.
They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the enriched uranium for an atom bomb.
Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade.
Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
Once Saddam has nuclear weapons, the terror network will have nuclear weapons. Next thing you'll see is a nuclear bomb in the World Trade Center. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live stream, whether you're watching us on YouTube or on Rumble. Today is Friday, which means our special show with our dear friend Tarik Cyril Amar. This show is called Cold War 2.0, and today we are going to discuss the ongoing hostilities and the war of aggression against Iran, but also we're going to put it in some proper context, especially when it comes to the military escalation and the retaliation from the Iranian side. And also we're going to speak about this religious talk. There is a lot of talk nowadays coming from the United States and Israel trying to paint this as a religious war. So we will have, in my opinion, an in-depth conversation about this. Guys, if you like this show from the beginning, please hit the like button and subscribe to Syriana Analysis. Tarik, our dear friend, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you, Kevork?
I'm good. I was wondering how many weeks are you left from developing a nuke in your basement? Since Netanyahu was sure, like in the past 30 years, Iran
Why, who
already...
isn't? Who isn't? You know, let's be honest, right? I mean, who isn't an anti-Semite? Who is not a stooge of Russia? And who is not developing a nuke in their basement? I'm sorry, friends from the Staatsschutz, we are joking. Look, I mean, look, when I see, if I may say one thing, when I see all these endless videos of Benjamin, greatest liar of all times, Netanyahu, going on for decades. Yeah, exactly. About Iran allegedly acquiring a nuclear bomb. You know what I really think? If only they had. If only they had. No,
they wouldn't.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. And they wouldn't have been attacked in this way. They would have been safe from this. And the other thing is, to make a more serious point, what I'm thinking, if only they had, you can be absolutely assured dozens of governments are thinking now in the world. Dozens. One thing that the Israelis and the Americans have done, they've done this before, but they've made it even worse, is they've sent a very strong signal all across the globe. And the message is acquire nukes. Nothing keeps you safe from the monster that is the United States if you don't have nukes.
So on a side note, guys, some people will nowadays probably develop enriching uranium in the basement. This is, we don't advise you of doing that.
No. Don't try this at home.
Don't try this at home, okay? Tarik, last time we spoke, there was no aggression against Iran. Let's say this direct aggression against Iran. And it seems that the plan was to decapitate the leadership, try to trick like a domino effect, so the hierarchy would collapse and then people would come to the streets. This is what they expected. They would do an uprising or a revolution and they would remove the tyranny, etc. It's failed. Now that since this event, please correct me if I'm wrong, it looks to me that unlike previous wars in the region, this time the country which is under attack from Israel is the one who is interested in a long war of attrition, unlike other countries in the region who were collapsed or they had no interest in a prolonged war. It seems that the Iranian side wants a war of attrition with the United States. For example, the foreign minister of Iran says that Iran rejects ceasefire negotiations and says ready for U.S. invasion. Do you also see this, from my perspective, that the Iranian side believes that they could exhaust resources of the United States and also inflict economic pain, not only on the United States, but the allies of the United States in the region and abroad, which means they're trying to set new rules of engagement and also try to at least restore some of the deterrence that they used to enjoy before the Israelis came too close in the assassination killings, and lots of events happened in the past 3 years.
I from what I can see in the media, really, right? And of course, things also change. I see two different messages actually coming out of the Iranian government right now. One is what you've referred to, not only one statement, but various statements indicating clearly that we are ready for a long war and we will make the US and Israel bleed, and we will take it out on them that way until they have to refrain from attacking us. So that's the war of attrition, long war, hold out strategy. I have also seen that Pezeshkian, right? Yes, I know, that Pezeshkian has come out and said that there are mediation efforts ongoing by other states, and that Iran is ready for finding a peaceful solution. Now, that may look like a contradiction, and maybe there's some tension inside the Iranian government, but it's not necessarily a contradiction in my view, because everybody, including Pezeshkian, at least from what he's saying, right, publicly, seems to agree that the bottom line is that they will not capitulate and they will not accept being defeated, right? So even on the outer side of the maybe we can talk spectrum, which is marked by this Pezeshkian hint, you don't find people saying, let's give up. I don't see that at all at this point. And it seems that there is agreement that they need to somehow force the United States and Israel to desist and give up on their side. And, The Economist is, of course, a rag, right? The Pravda of international capitalism, a neoliberal Izvestia of the worst type. But sometimes they catch a grain of truth. And The Economist, a few days ago or today, there was a line somewhere in one of its endless articles saying, for Iran, surviving this is already victory. And that is true. That is actually true. I'm not saying this to embellish the situation. That's simply a strategic fact. Because when a country like Iran, so isolated, is attacked by such overwhelming force, by such a powerful alliance, the Israelis and the US directly, and behind them quite a few others from the West, then not being defeated is victory. And the flip side of that is that if the Israelis and the US don't manage to defeat Iran, for them that's defeat. That's being checked visibly, right? And I don't see any signs in Iran, out of the government, that we can see of people in Iran, in Tehran, being willing to settle for less. And I think that's very important. And so I would formulate what you've said slightly differently. I would say that they will accept a long war if they have to avoid being defeated. They will prefer the long war in that case.
Looks like the Iranians in this case see that the cost of a con with the United States now, or a little bit of prolonged run through fix, it brings them some of the posture that they used to have region compared, let's say, a few weeks ago. And in this case, Iranians have the tools to inflict heavy pain on the allies of the United States, particularly. And I mean, I'm sure that Donald Trump tolerates dozens of killed soldiers. He don't care about them, but these Gulf monarchies, for example, in the region, receiving heavy economic pain, especially when it comes to the illusion of security and stability that they have created or promoted about themselves in the past at least decade, this is shattering now. And these countries have enormous economic might and weight. Again, they have influence because they have invested with trillions of dollars also in the United States. So there is a multifolded strategy being implemented from the Iranians, but this time it looks like the Iranians were ready. Not unlike the 12-day war, which it took them around 12 hours to respond. This time they were ready and they knew that this strike is going to happen, and the strategy was quite clear to see how they have retaliated. And there is a lots of footage, by the way, being suppressed on social media platforms, especially on X. It looks like they have changed the algorithm so that the people don't see the damage being inflicted inside Israel in this case. I'm personally I'm on X, and it's like most of my research is trying to follow many of these platforms to see what is going on, and only rarely you see some of these missile attacks against Israel. I want to show you, Tarik, a video of Trump, and it looks like there is a reason why Donald Trump is saying this. I will just play this video quickly. It's 37 seconds.
Once again, calling on all members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the military, and the police to lay down their arms. They're only going to be killed. And now is the time to stand up for the Iranian people and help take back your country. You're going to have a chance after all these years to take back your country. Accept immunity. We'll give you immunity. And we'll be giving you really the right side of history, because that's what it is. So you'll be perfectly safe with total immunity, or you'll face absolutely guaranteed death. And I don't want to see that.
First of all, I don't know why he was giving a speech and on his back there was a football team. Basically, there was Lionel Messi. There were many other Argentinian players who nowadays play in the United States. I'm not sure what's this event about, but it looks like the plan of decapitation or a coup d'etat. I'm sure that they had multiple strategies here, multiple plans. They were talking to people inside Iran to initiate a coup and turn against the Ayatollah. It seems that this has also failed. Like, you don't come as a president of the United States who you're at war against Iran and call on the IRGC to lay down their arms. If you had your guys inside the IRGC planning for a coup in this case, I think they have also failed in copying the Syria, let's say, example, which in 2012, this started with the so-called defections and desertions from the Syrian military, and Qatar was paying the money to the senior military officers to leave the Syrian army and join the so-called Free Syrian army. It looks like this time they have also failed to persuade any of these generals to join the so-called revolution against the revolution this time there.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, at the beginning of the attack, 28th February, I think it was, right? Trump made a statement about offering some sort of immunity to functionaries and officers and soldiers inside Iran already. And yes. I find it interesting that he's repeating this, because to me, that says nobody took him up on it. It means it didn't work. Yes. As you also think, I also believe it's a sign of weakness. I would even, maybe despair is going too far, but I do think it's a sign of frustration. And I think it's another attempt to find, as it were, a cheap, dirty trick to defeat Iran without having to go through a full-scale war, because he probably never wanted that. He's afraid of that. By the way, for good reasons. He should be very afraid of that. And so I also looked at that particular address that you've just shown, that particular statement by him, and I felt too that this is a sign that he's not feeling things are going well. We have propaganda, I think, alleging the opposite. Pete Hegseth is coming out, and Dan Kane, Joint Chiefs of Staff, has come out, and The Economist has had a long article which is clearly inspired by the Pentagon, where they're all telling the same story, namely that in military terms, this is working brilliantly. And I don't believe them. And we know from prior American and Western wars in general that the Americans are perfectly capable of immensely untruthful statements, of incredibly brazen lying when it comes to depicting a military situation to promote propaganda aims. And right now, I wouldn't believe a word they say. I wouldn't believe a word they say.
Can I give you an example? Can I give you an example so you can continue? Because this is one of the most ridiculous lies that I have seen recently by Hexes.
Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. The man tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh.
My God, he's such an idiot.
This is the question. Idiot. The question that I ask myself, like, do they learn how to lie later, or this comes like a factory settings, like?
No, I think with Israelis, they learn it in kindergarten. Israelis get it in kindergarten. Americans learn it via TV. I think that's the difference, how they operate.
This is incredible level of lie that is, I don't know if there's anyone in the United States is really buying this. But speaking of the Americans, I want to show you this Iran War Cost Tracker, which is a website, guys. It's IranCostTracker.com. You can go and check it yourself. So since the start of the war 6 days ago and 12 hours and 18 minutes and 32 seconds, $6.5 plus billion were spent in this war, which means per hour, you guys are spending $41 million from your taxpayer money. And per day, it's $1 billion from the American taxpayer money. Imagine these THAAD interceptors, one of the pieces cost $12 million. The Patriot system, each missile is $3 million. And then you have the Iranian Shahed missile drone is $35,000. So if you cost the ratio, interceptor versus drone, it's like 106 to 1. So those are the numbers of the billions and billions of dollars. So we're talking about 1 billion per day. I mean, we're sure that this is going to impact the American taxpayer money, but also some people are also asking the question, doesn't this also help the rivals of the United States, that the US is so much over expanded in different places, and now this expenditure over Iran?
Yes. I mean, look, obviously, it's not just the money. The money is very bad, actually. This is too expensive not to matter. And in fact, I don't know, you've probably seen it. There was a Politico article, I think it came out today, maybe yesterday, about special spending requests that are going to go to, that's Wall Street Journal exactly, must be about the same thing, special spending requests that they're expecting in Congress, right? And even among Republicans, so people from Trump's party, you hear hesitation and even some criticism. And of course, they're not speaking freely and they're not telling you what they really think, right? And they're talking about sums like maybe 50 billion for a first cut, just for a first cut. So, and they are all admitting that it will be incredibly expensive once again, after everything they've pumped into Ukraine, after everything they constantly pump into Israel, and so on and so on. Meanwhile, of course, economic situation in the United States actually shite, right? They don't have good growth. What's called the affordability crisis, which basically is a nice way of saying everybody's getting poorer except the upper 1%, is getting worse. People are hit most immediately in the United States by the gas prices, the gasoline prices, right? The fuel for the cars. And that's going up already. And of course, there's a direct connection to this particular war in this particular region. So all of this doesn't add up in terms of being okay with voters. We are going for midterms. And again, Kevork, it takes us back to something we have talked about. These disadvantages, let's put it like this, for Trump, political disadvantages, were all predictable.
Yes.
So on one side, yes, maybe I was taking a wild bet that he could get this done in 3 days and it would be over, right? And then he could bask in the glory and all that stuff. But on the other hand, I still think what is much more likely is that the Israelis forced him with something that is so bad that he accepted all of these risks. And I think he's being blackmailed. And let me repeat, I don't mean that to say he's not responsible. He's absolutely responsible, right? But one thing I would like to say about rivals, as you mentioned them, people who are not on the side of the US and the West, or states who are not, luckily, I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows who's not connected to very high circles in Moscow and Beijing. But my big question to myself is, what is Russia and what is China actually doing? There are signs that they're doing things to help Iran, but I wonder if it's enough. Because frankly, I would hope that they're giving them whole weapon systems, the most advanced stuff they have, if possible. And if they have to, actually personnel. That would have to be hidden because you can't do this openly. But that would be the way to make the Iranians capable of using these systems quickly, right? We know this from the Ukraine war situation, where the Ukrainians were always offered these miracle fixes that wouldn't work anyhow. But one of the problems was you can give somebody a very advanced weapon system, but that doesn't mean he has trained personnel, right? And the more advanced it is, the longer it takes to train the personnel. So if you want to have somebody in an acute situation, you actually have to bring personnel along, right? Even if you do it secretly. Now, one thing I'm really wondering about is, why are the Israelis and the Americans allowed the high degree, I don't think that's just a boast, the very high degree of air superiority they are enjoying right now? We've had a 50-plane raid on a very important government command bunker, right? And it was destroyed. I don't think that's just propaganda. That's unfortunately probably true. Israeli planes, they never take a hit. And that's a problem. What I'm waiting for is see Iranians beginning to shoot down these planes, including in Syrian airspace, if they have to. And that can only happen if somebody supplies them with very advanced air defenses, especially after the 12-day war, when they lost a lot of their own stuff, right? And frankly, to be honest, I have a lot of sympathy for Russia, actually. It grows every day. But I have to say, if they're not doing this very soon, then I wonder what they're up to. I mean, they've got to do something, you know?
I mean, similar case happened in Syria.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that the former Syrian government paid for the S-300s, and the S-300s are not some genius,
They're not the
very
most modern.
They're not the
No.
most modern ones,
No.
and they have never delivered them. And when they
Yeah,
delivered them, they
that's
put them in a Russian base, which was used only once, and then they took them back to
Yeah.
Crimea to protect the skies there. So
That's
there
not
is
really good enough, that sort of
no,
stuff.
no. I
And
mean,
if they let Iran fall, it's catastrophic for their project of BRICS, multipolar order, and so on. They cannot afford to let Iran fall. Syria was already terrible, but Iran, they can just go and forget about it then.
Iran is the third leg of the Eurasian economic integration. It's like in NATO, one of the major players is gone, right? And let's suppose, I mean, if NATO stands on three legs, one of them is gone. And I think in this case, if there is any, if they have a prospect or a vision for the future, I think Iran is essential. And if Iran falls, I mean, who's going to replace it? The Israelis want to bring the Shah. The Shah is going to become like a client state for the Israelis, and they will definitely block the access of the Chinese to the Iranian markets, the same way they're doing it now in Syria. So it's a huge blow. It seems that the Chinese and the Russian national security strategy is more local or more regional to protect themselves against existential threats, which is building up on their borders. For example, the Americans have built lots of they built up a lot on the borders with Ukraine and Russia. And now in the Pacific, you see every day there are reinforcements from the American side, which you start asking the question, what are they preparing next? That's why the Chinese want to protect their periphery. Some people say this, of course, but I think in this case, it doesn't make sense for us, at least people who are sitting in their offices, that everybody is waiting its turn to come, by the guy who's got the hammer.
Exactly. They either stand together or they will fall separately. But the other thing is also that, and I don't mean this in a cynical way. I'm not saying that the Russians or the Chinese should treat the Iranians as expendable proxies, the way that the West is treating the Ukrainians. I'm not saying that.
Yes.
But Iran wants to resist very clearly. And it makes perfect sense, both for Iran and for Russia and for China, to help that resistance massively and to weaken the Americans that way as well, because that will help them in all other theaters too. And what I'm sometimes thinking is that maybe Moscow has been distracted to an extent. I don't know anything, obviously, I'm speculating, by this facade that the Trumpist USA has offered of perhaps wanting to make peace, détente, new trade deals, and all that stuff. But personally, I would guess that there are also people in Moscow who have seen already that this is all unreliable at the very best, very unreliable, if not simply a deception. And that therefore there is nothing to lose in antagonizing the USA by massively supporting Iran and helping Iran defeat them. There's nothing to lose. There's no downside anymore, because the Russians will never get reliable cooperation from the US. It looked like it for a while. If Trump had wanted to be honest with that, he would have done it by now, and he hasn't.
I agree. Guys, before we move to the religious aspect of it, and this is not something that we endorse, this is what the Americans say. They would like this to be a religious war. Before we move to that, our dear friend Tarik is offering us, guys, for those who are watching this, of course, this is, if you subscribe to Tarik's Substack today, the link is scrolling on the screen, and this is valid until the end of 8th of March. So today from now, the link is here, and also it's
until the midnight Monday.
So midnight Monday. So on the 9th of March then, right? Am I correct? So it's 2 days from now, 48 hours, valid, this link, guys. If you click on this link, it's in the description below. Or if you're sitting on your TV now, you can turn on your also camera and scan this QR code near Tarik. It sends you directly to his Substack, and you can subscribe to his work there. If you do that in the next 48 hours, you will receive 20% off on the annual subscriptions on Tarik's Substack. Tarik, if we move to, as I said, to the religious part of this conflict, which I don't see it personally religious at all. I would like to show you what, first of all, this pervert Lindsey Graham said about this case.
This is a religious war. Who wins it at the end of the day? Do the radical Islamic terrorists who want to kill all the Jews because God told them to? Who want to kill me because I'm an infidel? Who want to purify Islam, to reject moderation and make everybody a jihadist? This is a big deal. I'll deal with Section 230. So what we're facing right now is a moment of decision that will set the course of the future of the Mideast for 1,000 years.
Tarik, I was born in a Christian Orthodox family. I assume you're a Christian Catholic, right?
Yeah, Roman Catholic.
Roman Catholic,
sort of, but yes, Roman
Catholic.
I
mean, we are not Muslims, and let alone a jihadi, and we don't endorse the takfiris and this type of trends. And I still at least find a very difficult time to accept this as a religious war, let alone me being basically on the same side of someone like Lindsey Graham, who claims that he represents the good religion in this case.
I think Lindsey Graham represents Satan. You know,
Yeah.
I'm quite literally, if there is a devil, Lindsey Graham is on his side and actually doing very hard work for him. And so is, of course, Netanyahu, and so is Trump. So this is insane, obviously, right? We are one of the pretexts, not reasons, one of the pretexts, the lies that we are being fed is that the West, the US, Israel must attack Iran and has a right to attack Iran in the most inhumane, brutal way, because allegedly Iran is this horrible fundamentalist regime, right? Regime. And the horrible fundamentalist regime is very clearly in the US. I'm not kidding. I mean, you have shown Lindsey Graham, but it's not just him. It's the president and all the people around him. I mean, most of our viewers will have seen the recent pictures, and there have been pictures like that before and videos like that before, of these mass prayer meetings, these insane so-called prayer meetings,
that you're referring to,
where one of them essentially intones, it's blasphemy. To me, this is blasphemy, right? This is taking the name of the Lord in vain. I mean it. This is blasphemy, the sin of blasphemy, because they're calling on God to help them slaughter his children in Iran. That's what they're doing, right? And they think that that's a prayer God wants to hear from them.
Let's show them this video, Tarik, that you're talking about.
Yeah.
We are honored to come before your presence today, lifting up the arms of our president. We pray for your continued blessing and favor to rest upon him. We pray for wisdom from heaven to flood his heart, his mind, and Lord, you will guide him in these challenging times that we're facing today. I pray for your grace and your protection over him. I pray for your grace and protection over our troops and all of our men and women serving in our armed forces. And Father, we just pray you'll continue to give our president the strength that he needs to lead our great nation as we come back to one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We pray your heavenly blessing upon him in Jesus' name.
I don't want them to bring Jesus' name on their tongues.
No, obviously. I mean, you know.
Did we lose Tarik? Yeah, I think
an incredible sullying, right, of Christ and of everything that Christianity actually stands for. And I have to say, when you look at, and not merely at this conflict right now, but when you look at the repeated bouts of conflict between Iran and Israel and the US also, it has been a pattern that the Iranians have always reacted with great restraint and with a much more humane war fighting way than the Americans and the Israelis. The slaughterers really are the Americans and the Israelis. Apart from the fact that, of course, they are constantly breaking every rule of international law, right? Whereas Iran is not doing that. The barbarians are these pseudo-Christians in the United States. And of course, this also is linked, as you know, to this whole very unhealthy, very perverse complex of so-called Christian Zionism, right? So these are insane, fundamentalist, so-called Christians who think that by helping Israel, destroying the Middle East, they somehow promote the second coming of Jesus Christ. The stuff is unfathomable, but what people in Europe need to understand, it took me a long time because I've lived in the United States for many years, actually. And even when I was there, because I was very much in New York, and it took me a long time to really understand, assimilate how insane millions of Americans are. Not that they're all sane in New York. They're not. But there is a specific insanity you won't find very often in New York, but in other countries, parts of the country, which is this insane mega Christianity, right? They call it Christianity, but it's not. It's blasphemous. Of course, it's a perversion. It's a fanatical, bigoted perversion. And it is terrible that the Europeans, for instance, have nothing to say about this. The religious fanatics in this war are the Americans and the Israelis, with the proviso that, of course, the Israelis are partly religious fanatics and partly they're just racists and nationalists, right? And fascists. But it gets all mixed up. As Ilan Pappé, the Israeli and historian, has said, who's very critical of Israel, Zionists usually don't believe in God, but they all believe that God has given them this country. That is the situation, right? They don't believe in God, but God has given them the country. And then you take people like Ben Gvir and others, and they don't only believe that he's given them the country, they believe he's given them most of the Middle East, all of the Middle East, and sometimes I suspect they think that they should actually run everything if justice were done, right? So, and the Americans are making common cause with that. That all of this needs to end for the world to finally sort of recover from this insanity.
By the way, Tarik, your cat is sitting exactly in the perfect place behind you, watching us. She watching the stream just behind you, like as if they know what is going on there.
She's curious.
By the way, speaking of this type of really insanity, I don't know if you watched this one. This is while it's sermon, basically sermon promoting Operation Epic Fury.
Yes.
Christian Zionist Trump ally Pastor John Hagee predicts Russia, Turkey, what's left of Iran, and groups of Islamics will invade Israel and be destroyed, destroyed by God through a combined attack of earthquakes, hailstones, and friendly fire.
Russia finds oil to be a global force. Israel has that oil, and Russia is already moving into the Middle East. What Israel doesn't have, Donald Trump will control. Secondly, Israel has what Russia must have to be a global force, a warm water port for their navy. Right now, Russia's navy is limited by the icy conditions around them, makes their ships unusable. Ezekiel states that God, quote, in the fury of his wrath, will send a great earthquake in the land of Israel so that the fish of the sea and the birds of the heaven and the beast of the field and all creeping things that creep on the earth shall shake at the presence of God. Mountains will fall and every wall shall fall to the ground. Step one, this earthquake is going to swallow one third of the advancing army consisting of Russia, Turkey, and what's left of Iran, and groups of Islamics that want to join this marching army in the future coming to Israel. You say that's never happened before. Yes, it has. Remember when Moses came down from the mount? He had the 10 Commandments. He found his people committing adultery, breaking the laws of God, and he threw the 10 Commandments, and it struck the ox, and God opened the ground and swallowed everybody that had broken the law of Moses. Problem solved. Your congregation is reduced, but these are the ones who will see the promised land. An earthquake is going to do this again. He will swallow 1/3 of that invasionary force. Immediately following that, the Bible says, every man's sword shall be turned against his brother. This is what military terms call as friendly fire. They will kill each other because there will be multiple armies speaking multiple languages with multiple weapons, and they're going to hit confusion and kill each other. You said that's never happened before. Yes, it did. Whenever
it is so revealing of a certain part of the American mind that for him, when people have multiple languages, that means they're going to kill each other. It's like, you can't imagine people with multiple languages without killing each other. It's amazing, right? Anyhow, but look,
there is no way he believes what he says. Like he's literally hypnotizing the people there. He's no way he believes this.
Well,
like
I never know
like he knows. I feel like he knows that this is all crap, and he wants to use this and weaponize it for political reasons. Like
But Kevork, it isn't even important if he believes it or not. But what's important is the unfortunate mass effect, right? And what it indicates, which is that considerable parts of America as a society are amenable to the most idiotic, frankly, fanatic, bigoted, fundamentalist propaganda. And we've known this for a while, but now we see them really welcoming a horrific war, another one. They've welcomed wars before, of course. And what look, the core of the issue here is the apocalyptic expectations, right? Because it's not only Hagee and these insane prayer meetings or what Pete Hexas is saying or his tattoos, right? It's also that we have had apparently reliable news that there have been dozens, if not hundreds, of incidents of American officers giving speeches to their men in different places and to different units, but all along the lines of this is a war that brings about Armageddon, and that's a good thing, the end of the world, right? In Iran, we are beginning the process that will lead to the apocalypse. I know this sounds insane, but they've really been given these speeches, and they have told their men that that's a good thing. So we have to understand that the United States is a global problem. Not every American is insane, obviously not. There are many sane ones. 59% of Americans do not welcome this war, right? They must be coming from somewhere, right? But America has a large share of extremely disturbed people in its population. I think they're overrepresented in politics and in the military. Yes. And America has the most massive military conventional forces on the planet by far. They have weaknesses, but to all the people who say, oh, the Americans, they never fight a real war, yeah, I understand, but don't underestimate how much damage they can do. They can do a lot of damage, even going down. And they have, of course, a horrific nuclear arsenal, the second largest after Russia. And frankly, those differences hardly matter. They have one of the two massive overkill nuclear arsenals that exist in the world, right? So we are dealing with a very, very dangerous and global problem. And I have to say, and I will say, I've been saying this for years, but I feel really confirmed in this, unfortunately. The obvious geopolitical issue for all of humanity, issue number one, everything else is not as important or urgent right now, is humanity has to come together to contain the United States. We need a global containment strategy against the United States because they're so dangerous now. And it will have to include Israel, of course. Yes. Right? And we are very far from that. And we need it urgently because the United States is an incredibly dangerous country.
Tarik, as we speak, I just received an article from the Politico. Since you mentioned the possible blackmail going on against Trump, and this is the Justice Department publishes document with sexual assault allegations against Trump. Like the timing looks like very interesting, like the Epstein files came just before the attack against Iran, and now more sexual allegations against him. And he probably did all these things, like they have collected this against him for a long time.
You know what my suspicion is? Obviously, I don't want to cast aspersions on this particular victim, right? This is a particular woman who has on several occasions, I think in 3 interviews with the FBI, made extremely disturbing allegations about what Trump did to her when she was young, right? I think whatever really happened, this probably all happened, But my suspicion is that at the DOJ, they picked a case where they could pretend at least that they can take it apart, right? We have to be formulating very, very carefully here, where they could pretend at least that they can take it apart.
Yes.
I think the open and shut cases, the evidence that would deliver a lethal blow to Trump at once without any more questions, all of these they're purging. I'm sure they exist, and a lot of them, and I'm sure they are being purged. And release something now, it's something they believe, rightly or wrongly, that they can shoot down. And once they've done that, they will take that as a pass pro toto, and then they will say, look, here, right? You're all saying he did this, but here's this one case that we could take apart. I think that's what's going on with this particular thing. And I want to repeat, I'm not saying that this woman is wasn't telling the truth. What I'm saying is the people releasing this must believe that they can neutralize this case, and they want to do that in public to distract from the fact that they're hiding many more cases where they wouldn't stand a chance of even trying.
Look at the coincidence, Tarik. I just also received, this looks like very coordinated now. Again, now this is the Telegraph. Just in, new FBI files reveal a woman aged 13 to 15 alleges sexual assault by Donald Trump in the 80s, previously missing from the Epstein files. Released amid the U.S. war with Iran, the claims have not been verified, and President Trump denies any wrongdoing. So,
one more thing, look at this. If you can show it again, look at the subtitle: Trump sex abuse files released in the middle of war. So they give the impression this is all the files. In English, this sounds like, oh, this is the files on Trump. We know that there is so much more. So much more. One case, and I'm sure they picked it because they think they can deal with it. But fair or foul, probably most likely foul means. And they're trying to hide everything else. I mean, I really have to say this, I think this is textbook limited hangout. This is textbook limited hangout.
Yes. Now that I'm on X, unfortunately, that I was checking more news, and now Medvedev has something to say. Medvedev says the Gulf Arab countries let American bases onto their territory naively. They expected protection from them. Like hell, the US just uses them while protecting only one country. Think long and hard about whether you really need US bases. They are not protection, they are a threat. I mean,
that's all true.
Objectively true. Objectively true. I mean, whether he drank a glass of whiskey before or a vodka before tweeting it or not,
let's be fair. True. For Medvedev, this was very restrained. This was very restrained. When you said Medvedev, I was waiting for something else. This was all very calm, and he's absolutely right, of course. And let's be clear: the one country that this U.S. protects is not the U.S. The one country this U.S. protects when it comes to the crunch is, perversely enough, Israel. And that is because the American elite, the one that is now in charge, has been captured. It's a captured elite. It's the Manchurian candidate elite, except it's the Tel Avivian candidate. That's what this is.
Indeed. Tarik, by the way, are you watching the reactions of the Iranian diaspora in Europe and in the United States? I've seen two things now, two phenomenons. I've seen a class of people who have had probably in the past privileges or enjoyed the Pahlavi rule, and they have been into exile for a long time. They have completely lost touch with reality on the ground in their own country. They have this dream in their mind, and it's an illusion that they have, that somehow they believe in it, and they're going to the streets and celebrating. I find it really hard to swallow this, watching them dancing and celebrating the killing of how many children they have killed in this school. And today they admitted that this was an American strike and not an Israeli strike anyways. It's the same. Over 100 children were killed, 180. I'm not sure about the numbers. So many.
60. It was 160 is the last I saw, but I think that rising all the time in that
And
incident.
this was an only girls' school, right? Like they killed all girls.
Primary school.
But I also noticed, Tarik, another thing. I also noticed that there have been a large number of people on X that I met, Persians, Iranians, very anti, let's say, Islamic Republic, and at the same time, very much anti-Israel and the United States. And this has coming mostly from the left, which apparently after the Gaza onslaught and all this, like, the emotions that were really leading the people's also public opinions because of the footage that we received from the Gaza Strip, which is very difficult for the people not to be touched of. I think this has also shifted some of the narratives when it comes to Iran, and these people who were watching with horror what the Americans and the Israelis did in Gaza, now they're seeing that those are the same powers attacking their own country, and despite the fact that they hate probably the Islamic nature of the country, at the same time, they are not agreeing with this type of bombardment. And I would like to show you just one video. And this is, guys, it's in German. We will explain to you now what this woman says. But she's definitely not she's not, let's say, a pro-Iranian government. She's not endorsing any, let's say, Islamic way of life. She lives in Germany. And she has something to say. I think we will watch this video, maybe just one and a half minute or two, and then we will tell you what she's saying. It's important.
Hallo, ich bin Ladan, ich bin Deutsch-Iranerin und bitte verbreitet dieses Video, damit auch auf Deutsch Nachricht herauskommt, dass die Mehrheit der Iraner nicht für diese Bombardierung sind. Wir wollen nicht, dass Israel oder die USA oder Europa unser Land zerstört, das Land, wo unsere Familien sind, unsere Freunde, unsere Kultur, unsere Heimat. Die Iraner, die ihr seht, die auf die Straße gehen und tanzen, mit Israel fahren, mit den Fahnen des schon längst vergangenen Monarchisten, der Shah-Pahlavi-Dynastie, das ist die kleinste Minderheit der Iraner, die komplett in einer Illusion lebt. Die meisten, besonders im Land, besonders jetzt, brauchen nicht diese Art von Freiheit durch Bomben von oben oder durch wirtschaftliche Sanktionen, was einfach Krieg mit einem anderen Namen ist. Bitte glaubt diesen möchtegern Iraner nicht. Es gibt so viele von uns, die komplett am Boden zerstört sind, die ihre Familie nicht erreichen können, die ihre Städte bombardiert sehen, die komplett sich machtlos fühlen und einfach am Boden sind, weil sie nicht wissen, was passiert und weil sie nicht wissen, ob und wann sie ihre Familien wiedersehen. Und diese Heuchelei der deutschen Medien und die komplett einseitige Berichterstattung ist einfach unfassbar. Es ist nicht auszuhalten.
So, I promise you to play this video. Sometimes it's some people are really impatient. I said, I will just play 1.5 minutes and I will explain to you why this video doesn't have subtitles. I will explain to you what she said. I swear to God, I will explain. And she's basically talking about the people from her own diaspora, from the Iranians who are celebrating in the streets and supporting the bombardment of their own country. And she's saying that those are minority of people. They support the Pahlavi Shah and the monarchy, and they're completely delusional, detached from the reality, and they're supporting the onslaught against our people. We are the majority, she says, in the diaspora, and these bombs are falling over our families and our parents and our relatives, and we're living in terrified, basically, because we cannot even reach our families to ask them what is going on, if they're alive or not. And she's also blasting or criticizing the German press, I believe, for being just one-sided about this case and only showing what the Pahlavis people are saying. Meanwhile, there is a majority of Iranians against this war, right? So I hope that was, guys, sufficient as a translation. This reminds me, Tarik, a lot in the past 14 years of the Syrian diaspora, those people who were so much encouraging and endorsing the sanction regime against their own country, celebrating the bombardment of their own country by multiple forces, the United States, France, Britain, Israel, hundreds of times. And all the time, the press was so much hyper-focused on them, only showing these people. And then when there was one person, for example, I think in the Syrian diaspora, we had Richard Medhurst, you had Mimi Laham of the Syrian Girl Partisan, and you had me speaking in English. And we're trying to deliver the full image of what is going on in the country to the outside world. And just coincidentally, 3 of us were completely demonized by the mainstream press and called all sorts of names. Richard Medhurst, he was accused of basically supporting terrorism. He's a Christian.
Massive harassment. The British and the Austrians together were after him. And partly still are. Horrific stuff. Police state stuff. Yeah.
So this is also the role of the press, right? See how much the press is complicit with the governments, not even the governments, the people who are waging these wars. Like, there is no longer serious journalism, Tarik, and this journalists basically seriously helping and siding alongside the people who are murdering millions of people around the world. It looks like they also have lots of responsibility in this.
Let me put it like this. I think you're right. And my guess is that what you mean is, like I would say, there is no serious journalism or commentary anymore in the mainstream. There's nothing there. The mainstream media are hopeless, right? And totally streamlined. And it's the same in Europe and the US, right? A German talk show with people like Maischberger or Lanz or Illner may look a little less ridiculous than certain American formats, but it's not better. It's not better. It's the same bias. It's the same absolutely brutal one-sidedness. It's the same didacticism. It's the same propaganda. Packaging maybe a little more European. That's all that's left. And the major newspapers and magazines, I know the German case, that used to provide a little bit of a fourth power sort of criticism, like Spiegel, done. It's all done. It's horrific. But interestingly enough, I would say, and I don't want to come across as a starry-eyed optimist, but I would say that you still find very serious journalism and serious commentary in the new non-traditional media. That's where you find it now. It's not totally gone from the world. It's just there, you know. And interesting, to give you just one example, a figure like Seymour Hersh, right, who used to be a star in the mainstream media because he's such a good investigative journalist, and who now operates on Substack and in the alternative media because he just can't work in the mainstream. Glenn Greenwald, right? You have the guy, I forgot his name now.
I remember the days of Robert Fisk and how much they smeared him before he died because he opposed.
Yeah, exactly. So it's. I mean, the good message is, or the good news is that it's not all gone, but it is gone from the mainstream. And insofar as many people, and I see this with Germans very much, as many people do still rely on the mainstream, they are propagandized hopelessly. They're completely detached from reality. They don't have any idea anymore what's really going on in the world.
I would show you one example of what they call themselves an alternative media in Germany. And I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this example from this.
Who is it?
News.
Come on. No, not these guys.
Look. This is more than hilarious. And those are the guys who say our woman should not be on OnlyFans and etc. And they say the intense American and Israeli attacks on Iran are apparently leading to the fact that Sharia law is no longer being enforced there in practice. Many women from Iran are posting pictures and videos in which they appear unveiled, often also in sexy manner. I mean, But
Kevork, this is not the alternative media, actually. This is, they pretend to be. They're fake. This is basically Bild Zeitung pretending to be alternative media. This is crap. Look, if you want to have right-wing alternative media, which I would take seriously as alternative, that would be compact.
Nachdenken.
That would actually be that would be compact. And you can think about them what you want. You know, I'm not on the right, I'm on the left very much. But compact on the attack against Iran has beaten everyone else in Germany, right?
I've seen them.
They have actually said the right stuff, compact, who have been demonized as these horrible, super far-right outliers. Well,
And that's,
maybe
by the
they
way,
are.
one of the reasons that I was smeared as a far right, because the compact in 2017 or 18, they did an interview with me about Syria. and now that I have given them an interview, I become a far right.
No
Excuse
wonder.
me, I was on BBC. I was on Deutsche
Who was
Welle.
it? Was it Jürgen Elsässer? Did you meet Jürgen Elsässer?
I was on many mainstream media outlets. Does that make me a mainstream? It's crazy. And this guy was so knowledgeable. The guy who interviewed me, he understood the Syrian war. Like, he really understood what is the
Who
root
was
cause.
it? Who was it? Do you remember the name? I'm just
I
curious.
will dig into compact archives, and I will get you the interview and I'll send it to
doesn't
you.
matter.
This is online for sure. So I just wanted to tell this story because since you mentioned compact, and I've seen them also pushing a lot and criticizing the AfD, and they're doing very good. They're not criticizing all of them, but they're criticizing the people who are giving justifications
who suck
for the
up
war.
to Israel and the US.
Tino Coppola, for example, he made some good statements about this against the war on Iran, which is great. But other people in the AfD didn't.
You know, the one guy who's saying sometimes something that makes sense is this popular philosopher, this David Brecht guy or something. And he sometimes still gets into the mainstream, but that's a huge exception. Think of somebody like Jürgen Todenhöfer, former member of the German parliament, the way he's treated now. They're almost going to put him into prison, and maybe they actually will. And the reason is because he's not going along on Gaza, and I would believe also not on Iran. The climate in Germany is horrific. It's semi-police state now. It is semi-police state now.
And above all, we have these diesel prices today. It's like €2 per liter. The diesel price, it's horrendous. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to our program Cold War 2.0, and special thanks to our dear friend Tarik Cyril Amar for always being with us and for his great insightful analysis and also observations about what is going on, whether in Iran or in the broader geopolitical sphere. Thank you guys for tuning in, whether on YouTube or on Rumble. And special thanks to our moderator, Red Access, and everybody who participated in the chat, the debate, and the conversations that was ongoing. My eye was always here watching what is going on. Before leaving this stream, if you liked what we're doing here on Syriana Analysis, please hit the like button, subscribe to Syriana Analysis. And if you like, and only if you can, support our independent work, you can become a patron. The link is scrolling on the screen, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis. If you don't like using Patreon, there are different other means in the description below. And I will see you next Monday. Peace be upon you and great weekend. Salam.
Bye-bye.